You're listening to Our Two Satoshis podcast with hosts Justin and Billy from CryptoFizz.com.
On this podcast, we're going to have the CEO of FunFair, Jez San. So Billy and I will be kicking it off here and asking some questions along the way. So Jez, thank you for joining our podcast today.
It's a pleasure. Hey, Justin. Hey, Billy.
How's it going?
I've had an incredibly busy day so far, but this is the end of my day, so I'm looking forward to a fantastic interview before I go.
And
busy is good.
Our day's just getting kicked off.
Okay. Well, I think it's the hottest day of the year here in London, so luckily our office is air-conditioned, but it's really hot outside.
How hot is the hottest day of the year in London?
I think it's probably about 30 in Celsius, so what's that?
Celsius?
Yeah. That's like 80-something. Yeah, where are you going?
80-degree weather all the time. We're in both in Virginia and the United States.
So it's 29 right now in London, which let me convert that into Fahrenheit for you guys. No, I can't do that in a hurry.
Quick math.
Yeah.
So is it humid or is it kind of dry?
It's actually really humid as well.
Yeah. Same here.
So that is 85.
Okay.
That's nothing.
But really humid too.
That's cute. It's a cute level of heat.
Our country's not built for heat, so when we have heat,
Sure.
you really feel it. There's no beach.
That's fair. That's FunFair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So being the hottest day of the year, hopefully, now that you're inside, we can go ahead and you can enjoy the AC. We can address some of these questions here that some of our listeners might have. Just so that you know, Jez, so CryptoFizz has been around a little over a year now. We kind of started it here as we were into blockchain technology and investing, and we wanted to create a repository for help for us, but also just anyone out there that wanted to follow kind of what we were doing. And one of our first articles that we actually wrote on CryptoFizz was about FunFair, July 11th of last year. So
wow, cool.
So this has been.
We had just kind of launched about then, like in terms of, we had just finished our token sale, like around then.
I think it was right after that. Yeah, right after the ICO. I remember your quote specifically in an article that I read that said that if you don't know how to run a company, then you shouldn't run an ICO. And that pointed me to you because I'm like, gosh, this guy, this is.
Yeah, I have a few kind of golden rules about. Token sales and token companies, and because there's just so many scammers out there, and there's a lot of anonymous teams, and there's a lot of people who are very naive and have got a good idea, but they have no idea how to run a company. And so I have a lot of tick marks that I use myself for what I decide I want to buy into. I just feel sad that there's so many either deliberately scammy or deliberately blatantly criminal tokens out there, or there's naive companies that have no idea how to grow a team or build some tech or deliver what they've pretended to invent in their white paper. And it's a shame that 95% or more of these tokens are going to suffer because there's a lot of companies out there that have no idea how to run a company.
Well, and it gives blockchain technology such a bad name and cryptocurrency in general. I think we covered this on last week's podcast, Billy. There was an article that we came across where I think it was 75% of ICOs in this range that they measured had already gone belly up.
Right.
And, basically
there's no rules or governance in terms of what the companies do with the funds that they've raised. And some of them, they just walk off with the money. They just say, well, that we didn't say what we were going to do with it, or we didn't promise, or we crossed our fingers or something, and so they just take the money and walk away. There's no there's no maturity or governance in this space, and there's also no analysts looking at it objectively. That all the analysts seem to be sell side or buy side. They're kind of partisan in some way, and you cannot be sure that the advice you're being given is legit.
Well, and that's part of what you were saying in that article that I mentioned there, is that you were talking about how, they go the ICO route but can't even build out the product, and that you guys already had basically a POC when you got to that
Right.
point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a fundamental, should be a must-have for any token company, is at least build and prove the technology, prove a prototype that it works before you raise any money. Like, it'd be nice if you had a management team that, or how to run a business, and that you have proved you've done the technology, or at least, broken the back of it and like done the hard stuff to prove that you know how to do it. All of those things are just like must-haves, and yet there are teams raising money that are completely anonymous and no one knows who they are, or that they just promise the earth in the white paper and have no clue how to deliver it, or they do a bait and switch. There's a number of them in my sector, that raise money saying they're going to do this and then they do that instead, which is something completely different after they've got the money. So no, it's quite shocking, all of the practices going on in this space.
So I actually have a question.
Sure.
Just to kind of go backwards a little bit, where did the name Jez come from?
So Jez is actually a surprisingly common nickname in England, and it's Jeremy. So, and most Jeremies, it sounds way too formal, so they shorten it to something, kind of like Richard would get shortened to Rick or Dick in America. Sure. Jeremys always get shortened to Jerry or Jezza or Jez. Like, there's so few actual Jeremys left because it's such a long formal name.
Or William to Billy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Come from a long line of Williams and Bills.
There you go.
I'm holding on to that Y though. I'm not ready to be grown up.
That's awesome.
So our like shadow prime minister is Jeremy Corbyn, and they call him Jez or Jezza sometimes. Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear is often called Jezza. So, there's a few of them around. There's a lot. Basically, Jeremys always get nicknamed into something else.
I'm surprised that hasn't made it across the pond yet.
Yeah, I know. You guys are so good at picking nicknames. I'm surprised that one hasn't made it.
Usually they're derogatory ones nowadays that you see online, but
yeah, that's true in England as well.
That's crazy. So, Jez, there were before we kind of dive into FunFair, going on your name where Billy just asked that right there. Billy, you kind of had some questions there. You actually had one that you came across, doing your Google Master there that I know you were itching to ask Jez.
Well, so I was doing some deep Googling and I came across an interview from like 1989.
Okay.
So it's a little while ago, and
so how were you born before or after this interview?
Before.
Okay. Before.
Okay, good.
I'm not going to say how far. So it said that you were into cars, and you happened to pick up these guys in a Ford Sierra Cosworth.
Oh yeah, I used to love that. I had 2 or 3 Sierra Cosworths, and then go ahead. Anyway, what was your question?
No, I was just curious if you still had it and
No. I'm not a car collector.
No.
I do love cars. Unfortunately, back then I didn't have any kids, and now I have lots of kids. So my car choice has moved towards people moving, and less towards like fun cars that only I can drive. Although I still have I have an Ariel Atom. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I don't think so.
Okay, well you have to Google it. Ariel, as in ARIEL, Atom. It is actually the most amazing performance car, and yet it's also one of the cheapest you can get. It's like a tenth of the price of a Ferrari, but easily would be faster than a Ferrari.
It's got open wheels.
They're hand-built British sports cars. They look like Formula One kind of mini race cars.
Yeah, that's awesome. Open wheels concept.
And they're really kind of a track car, but you can drive them on the road.
Oh, that's cool. I'm looking it up right now. Yeah.
They have no doors, no windows, no windscreen wipers, they're pretty basic. It's basically a very powerful engine in a very light car, and it's 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or something, or less than 3 seconds.
That's perfect for a hot day like today.
Yeah. There's no air conditioning, there's no fan, there's no heater, there's no nothing. You have to climb in and out of it. So it's like a beach buggy kind of thing, but very fast.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
But generally, the cars I drive these days seat 8 or 7 people. Because I have a lot of kids to move around.
Well, Jez, I just had my first child 5 months ago, and we just bought an SUV. So I know the feeling. Went from a little sporty car to an SUV now. So definitely got to do the practical.
I've had some fun cars on the way. but they're all gone now. So I don't. Actually, I have no space to keep them. Like I live in London, so for each car that you own, you have to be able to park it somewhere. So I just don't collect cars. So I have, one or two that are fun and one or two that move a lot of kids around, and that's it.
Sounds like FunFair needs to invest in some.
Well, one is a
garage
Tesla though, which is obviously a Tesla is a good crypto car, second only to a Lambo.
That's right.
That's awesome.
What do you have, the Model S or is it the EX?
I have the X because, as I said, we have a lot of
nice.
kids to move around, and the X is good for
Falcon
that.
wing doors, right?
Yeah.
Love it.
Nice. So when we're jumping into FunFair now, kind of before we touch on that, where did Billy is our graphics guy, so he's big into graphics, and he knows that you have your interest has really been in graphics in the past. Where did that interest stem from?
So I was in computer games when the industry started. I got my first computer in the 70s. I was programming it from more or less the day I got it when I was very young. I started my company when I was 16 years old, my first computer games company. So I've always been into graphics, and computer graphics and computer games are as far as most people are concerned, is kind of the leading edge of, programming. Like it's real time, every cycle counts, and so you're constantly writing better and better algorithms and better code to make the frame rate faster and to make the graphics better and the higher number of polys in the 3D objects and all that kind of stuff. So so that's kind of the forefront of development and programming as far as I'm concerned. And so I've always been into that. So 3D graphics since I was 16 years old, in the early 80s, doing computer games.
And Starglider, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Starglider was not my first game, but it's my first big hit. So effectively, it was my first successful game, but I did do a couple before then, and they were also 3D. So yeah, it was a fun time back then when one person could make a computer game.
Yeah, reading your backstory on that reminds me of *Halt and Catch Fire* with some of the stuff. It's I don't know if you've seen the show *Halt and Catch Fire*, but
No.
Oh, it's great. It's back when the internet was being developed and they were coming up with the browser and they were developing like first-person games and stuff like that. So it's a series here on America's AMC channel.
Okay.
But that's what it seemed like to me, like you developing that chip that was used in these games. And,
yeah. So that chip that we designed for the Super FX chip, the Super FX chip for Nintendo was the first 3D graphics chip for games. So it was before GPUs were big. So it was you could argue it was the first GPU. It wasn't for a PC, it was for a Nintendo, but the principle was the same. And for a while it was like the world's best-selling RISC microprocessor, which is a certain kind of microprocessor. But no, that was a great time.
That's awesome.
We got to do a lot, and Nintendo were very generous to let us invent stuff on their dime. So it was cool.
Nice.
Well, speaking of that, Billy, you were talking about virtual reality, right? What you want to
Yeah.
So given your background in graphics,
Depends how well you were Googling. How deep did you go? Because I've done 2 VR machines a long time ago, so did you find them?
No, this is actually more of a broader question about FunFair and the future of FunFair. Do you see a VR element to FunFair in the future?
So I'm going to answer that kind of nuanced, because I have been in VR since 1989. Like I've done it when it was big the first time around, and it failed. And I also did it like later than that when it was big the second time around, and it failed. And now it's big again, and we'll see. So basically, because I've seen VR come and go a few times, I'm kind of let's see if it catches on this time, and maybe it will. Maybe there's enough momentum behind it now and better hardware now that it could actually catch on. But it's still got some fundamental problems, which is you still have to strap something to your head and walk around looking like a dork, and that is a problem. That is a problem for market acceptance. So eventually the hardware will be so good and so discreet that it is just a pair of sunglasses you put on, and then it will be really successful. But until that point, where is the balance where it will actually be mainstream? And I don't think we're there yet, even with really good VR hardware now, but it's still really clunky compared to what people will acceptably wear. And don't forget, people had Google Glass that they wouldn't wear, and that was relatively small. And we're asking them to wear massive headsets that have screens strapped to their heads and motion trackers and sensors looking at their hands. I mean, it's really great for an arcade experience. So it's really great, like The Void. I don't know if you've seen that. The awesome VR for shopping centers and shopping malls and things like that. So there are some really good VR experiential systems, but is it ready for mass market home use? I don't know yet. I would love to believe that it is, and if it is, then of course we'll support it. So circling back to your question, yeah, FunFair is built in 3D. Even the games that look 2D are actually really 3D. So if we wanted to do them in VR, we absolutely could. So we're just waiting for the market to exist and waiting for there to be enough of the market for us to have something to do with it.
Sure. Cool.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and shameless plug here, I'm a big Everton fan, and the coolest thing they actually did recently was they usually have a child come on the field that's got like a disability before the game, and they were the first team to actually bring a bot out there because the child was in the hospital, and the child was able to experience going out there on the field.
Okay.
So, like I said, shameless
That's
plug
cool.
because I'm a big Blues fan.
Very cool. Well, the first time I saw those bots being used was actually Edward Snowden gave a talk at, I think it was TED, or it might have been at South by, and he did the whole lot remotely by this robot thing. So that was, yeah.
There'll be a point in time where we don't leave our houses for anything.
Yeah, probably.
5 years from now, doing this interview.
So let's circle back kind of to FunFair now and go through some of the stuff that's on the horizon for you guys, what you guys have been developing and everything. So to kind of level set this, and I guess rather than me just giving the elevator pitch, for our listeners out there that haven't heard about FunFair before, can you give us just a brief pitch of what FunFair is doing, what they're developing?
Absolutely, yeah. So FunFair is gaming technology, and the goal and the mission is to make gaming fair, and gaming is casino gaming. Us people in the casino gaming industry use the same word that the computer games industry uses. They're both gaming. But the problem with casino gaming is that the player doesn't know if they're being cheated or not. They're playing a game that is remote, and the server for that game is on some offshore island somewhere. And there's no transparency. They can't tell if the random numbers are fair. They can't tell if the execution of the game itself, of the actual game logic that decides if they've won or not. They can't tell if the outcome is fair. They can't tell if they should have won but didn't, or won but didn't get paid, or there's zero transparency, and so there's a lot of trust involved. And that's fine when they're legitimate companies like we have on the high street in England, where casino companies are completely legitimate and they're properly licensed and they're on every high street and they're household names. But it's not fine on the internet where the company is somewhere you've never heard of, run by anonymous people that you've never heard of, and the servers are somewhere you can't access. And then worse, you're using cryptocurrency where there's no way to get a refund if you've been screwed. So it's basically an unsafe place for people to play, and a lot of people don't play online because they don't trust it. And the stats that we've seen, which actually the UK Gambling Commission put out earlier this year, are something like only 30% of people actually trust online casinos, whereas they would trust a legitimate land-based one because they can walk in there and they see the roulette wheel spinning and they see the ball landing, or they see the cards being shuffled in blackjack. So people generally do not trust online gaming, and you're asking a lot of them to deposit money. So we've built technology that is licensed to the casino industry that makes games fair. And it does this by making the random numbers fair, by making the gameplay run on smart contracts so that the blockchain enforces the fairness. And then because blockchain is actually relatively slow, especially, the ones that are good, we've actually built our own scaling technology that is layer 2 scaling that we call fate channels. and they make it run super fast. So that's why it's fun and fair, because the game's every bit as good as any game that people play today, but they're completely provably fair. Not just like telling you the random number was fair, but actually proving with smart contracts and a technology called dispute resolution, which basically makes the blockchain take over if any cheating happens. So it's very cool tech. It could potentially disrupt the entire casino business. And we think it's the safest way for people to play. If they're going to play and they're going to take a risk, we want them to at least not be cheated and get a fair game. And so we built the tech and we license it to the casino companies, and we're in beta test right now on mainnet, so it's almost ready. Literally when beta test is over, we're ready to go, and then we've already announced who the first casino licensee will be, and then there'll be more. We'll roll it out across the industry over time.
Well, and the really cool part about it is, and you correct me if I'm wrong on anything here, but you don't actually deposit your FunFair per se, right?
That's right.
Okay, so it's not like
Yeah,
you're
so
really
that's
depositing
one of the big differences in terms of player protection with what we've got versus what is the norm. In a typical casino, either a credit card casino or a Bitcoin casino, the player must make a deposit first into the casino's own custody. And so the player has lost control of their funds, and they've given them to the casino, and they're trusting the casino to look after them. And after the casino's received their money, then they can play games, but their money is in the casino's wallet. And then if they win or if they lose and they want their money back, they have to ask for withdrawal, and they might not get it, or they might get it, but it might be delayed, or they might get it. They're taking a risk on having to trust the casino. And in crypto, no one wants to do that. In crypto, everyone says, your private keys are the most important thing, and that your funds must be in your control and don't leave money on an exchange. And so why would people want to deposit money into a casino and lose custody of their money while they're playing? It's so unnecessary. So we built the technology to let people play games from their own wallet. So you play from your own wallet. There's obviously some money that is in transit, that is inside the game at the time you're playing the game, and then when you win, the money is back in your account. So, and the rest of the money that you're playing with is in your account the whole time. So at no time are you risking the custody of the casino to look after your money. And that technology is a fundamental shift in protection for players, as well as the fairness that we've mentioned.
On this, so we're talking about as the end user right now, but also I've done a little bit of research, and this will benefit the casinos as well, because from what I've seen, and I could be off my numbers a little bit here, but online casinos, like 30% of their fees are in chargebacks from people
totally.
credit cards and stuff.
It benefits everyone because, firstly, no one can cheat, so the player can't cheat and the casino can't cheat, so that actually gives a level playing field to the games. So, even the casinos don't have to trust the players either. So, everyone gets a trustless, fair game. Mm-hmm. And as you say, in a typical credit card casino, there are chargebacks. There's fraud. There's stolen credit cards that people are playing with, and laundering money and all sorts of things. None of that can happen in crypto. Obviously, that doesn't stop people, playing with stolen funds, but that's a separate problem. That's a crypto-specific problem. That's not a gaming problem. Yeah. Because the player doesn't make a deposit, so the player plays games and the winnings come back to the same account that they played the game from. So there's no money laundering possibility, and there's no ability to use stolen credit cards, and there's no chargeback risk. And so basically, it's a much cleaner experience, a much safer. Also, personally, I don't think people should be playing with credit. I think gambling is a vice, and many casinos in the traditional online world let people play with credit cards. With credit cards are credit, and they have an exorbitant interest rate that they charge if you don't pay it back that month. Mm-hmm. So personally, I think people should be playing with disposable income, which is cash, includes crypto. I would much prefer people play with cash than play with credit cards. But I'm in the minority on that. But I believe that is the right decision.
Well, it's responsible, definitely.
I kind of want to Tarantino it real quick and go back. Maybe I missed this, and I apologize if I did. Where did the focus on gambling come from?
That's so my ancient history. So I used to make computer games, and I made computer games for like 20 something years. But my hobby was online poker, or
Gotcha.
poker in general. I was playing poker with my friends, and I was playing online poker, and I wished that you could have an experience as good as a computer game, but as real as a poker game. And so that led to the idea of my previous company, which is an online poker company called PKR.com, which is unfortunately no longer with us, but it survived about a decade or so. And PKR was what would happen if you merged a computer game with 3D graphics and great visuals with a poker game, and which is normally text based and numbers for bets and icons for the people and so on. So I merged those together, and we had a very compelling, highly interactive, really fun poker game that had all the things that a real poker game has, like body language and tells. It had those in the game, which you don't normally get in an online game. But we could do that because we had avatars and we had, a bit more information. But while that was going on, my next hobby was crypto. So I got into crypto in 2013, which is, early for some, late for others. And I always wanted to find a way to improve gaming and to, fix some of the, huge problems in the gaming business through the use of blockchain and crypto. And that's where FunFair came in, was combining other hobbies together of crypto and gaming and trying to make it better, because blockchain can solve a lot of problems, and transparency and provability is one thing that blockchains are very good at. And the gaming business was, in need of some disruption.
Sure.
The provability is the awesome part about it to me. Example is recently, I purchased something for my wife on Overstock.com and used Bitcoin. And it was just cool that I could actually see my funds being transferred, the route that they went, that they were received on their end. I know it's talking about funds here, as opposed to actually playing the game, but it's just you would never could see that before in any other type of technology when you're dealing with big corporations and companies and stuff like that. So that's the super exciting part to me. Now,
absolutely. I'm such a big believer. The transparency and provability of blockchain in general, and particularly when you get smart contracts, which Ethereum brought to the table, just the empowerment of smart contracts and blockchain together just let you build apps that run with full transparency, which you've never been able to do before. So the perfect storm of technologies that arrived that have enabled what we've built at FunFair is just fantastic. And then obviously we augmented that with our own state channel technology, the Fate channels. Those combination of technologies together have enabled us to do something that has never been possible before, to do provably fair games of chance where you can win real money.
So you actually mentioned this a few minutes ago, but you brought on your first operator, which is Rake the Rake. So they haven't really operated anything in the past per se, right? As far as their own casino.
Not that I'm allowed to mention.
Yeah. Okay.
So the thinking there, apart from the fact that they're really great guys and I've known them for a long time, the thinking is that what is a casino operator? If you deconstruct it, they are a bank because they have funds. They need to have a bankroll, which is the money that the players could win, and they need to have great marketing because they need to be able to find customers, and they need to have a brand. But then apart from that, there's all the boring stuff. They need to do payment processing, they need to do customer service, they need to have software, they need to have games. And so if we take out the technology side of the platform and we deliver that on a nice platter for them, then this opens the door to a whole new generation of casinos that are effectively powered by affiliates, because affiliates like Rake the Rake are the lifeblood of the casino business. They are the marketing people. They find the players and they deliver them to the casinos and they get a revenue share for it. So instead of doing that, why don't they just tick a box and run their own casino? They're still doing what they're good at, which is finding the players and delivering them to the casino, but instead they own the casino. So we think, and there's thousands of affiliates. So we think this is an untapped, rich seam of potential casinos that have never been possible before because the technology hasn't existed to empower them before. And now we have the technology to do that. Rake the Rake is a fantastic first stab at that market, and we think there's a potentially huge market behind that.
In your mind, what's your biggest advantage in the current marketplace? Everybody's trying to compete. Some say edgeless might be a competitor.
Well, there's lots of potential competitors.
Sure.
I could go through each one and list their pros and cons. I'm pretty unbiased and pragmatic about it. No one has what we have, the complete picture yet. We have the technology, we have the skill set, we have the team, we have built some really strong games that look nice and play well, and we have the fake channel technology, which is full general purpose state channels. Like no one has done that before. Lots of people want to do that. A few bright people are working on it. No one has actually delivered it except us so far. And then in terms of the other online casinos, there's three kinds in my mind of online casinos. There's the old ones, the incumbents that are credit card casinos, and you make a deposit and you get no provable fairness and no smart contracts for the games, and there's a lot of those. Then there's the Bitcoin casinos that are more or less the same. You still make a deposit, you're still trusting the casino with your funds, and you're still playing your games in a private server with no provable fairness. And I think those are more unsafe than the credit card ones because there's no refunds or chargebacks possible. And then you've got the new generation, which are the ones that are smart contract based. And of those, there's very few companies that are doing that, and none that are doing it well. Edgeless has done a couple of games, and they're very average games. I wouldn't say they were competitive, but they're not terrible.
Sure.
But they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're okay. But they're not gonna really be that competitive. And they haven't done a lot of games. They haven't done a full casino. To have a casino, you need to have a bunch of games, at least like 5 or 10, maybe even 20, 50, 100. You need a bunch. One game or two games is not a casino. And then you've got a whole bunch of other people that are just claiming stuff and just writing white papers and saying they're going to do what FunFair is going to do, but they have no idea how to do it, and they have roadmaps that are like a year or two away for when they're going to deliver what we already have now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and talk about like the amount of games that you need on the platform. So you all just signed on a new developer, which is Big Wave, that's going to be bringing out Chohan dice game. In Asia.
Yeah. So we've signed our first two game developers, one in UK and one in Asia, and they are effectively our learning curve to learn how to work with other games developers, and then they will help us refine the API that we will then put out shortly, so that lots of other game developers can work on the platform, because this platform is designed to be open and designed to be used by lots of game developers and lots of casino companies. So we've got to seed the market by building a bunch of games ourselves and, make sure that the first few games exist. But after that, it's market forces and the free market, and we expect lots of companies to build games for this platform.
Is that what your direction you view it as companies, or could individual developers come in and contribute a game? Or could...
No, anyone could. No, it's kind of like the App Store. Like, sure, you have some big companies that will already have some content and they'll bring it over and make the changes they need to make it work on the platform. And they'll bring some popular games with them. But you'll also have the small developers that have got a great idea and they can build a game on their own. Like, you don't need to be a huge company to build a game. And particularly when you have a platform like this, where it's exactly like the App Store, where anyone could have a successful game.
So I would imagine that if you were going to be a casino provider, that you would obviously have to go through some legal, stuff. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, there's some regulation involved, and depending on what territories you want to operate in, you need to make sure you have the licenses or the legal clarity to operate in those places. And the gambling industry is full of regulations, and so complying with the regulations is hard. And that's why it's more likely that if you're going to be a casino, you probably are an experienced professional company, at least initially. We are trying to smooth that over and make it easier for entry into the casino world. So we're applying for licenses that are called platform licenses that will allow us to sub-license to other people to be casinos. So eventually we'll be able to bring on anyone, but we're focusing on the professional casinos right now. But as in terms of game developers, anyone could build a game. Like you could be one or two people, a small team, and you could build a game because running it on our platform, we can guarantee that it runs fair. Obviously, you have to build it to be fair in the first place, but when it's running on the FunFair platform using fake channels and dispute resolution, we use the technology to make sure that it plays fair and to make sure that it's fully transparent. That opens the door and gives a channel for game developers to put games on a casino platform that could be in use by lots of other casinos one day.
And do they just get like a percentage of when it's played on other sites or something?
Exactly. It's a marketplace, and they choose their revenue share that they want, and then the casino, when they're building the casino, they tick on which games they want to host in their casino, and they can choose which ones to provide. And if the game developer has been reasonable about the revenue share that they want, then that casino will include them. And if the game developer is too greedy and wants a high amount, then the casino will have to decide if they want to justify paying that revenue share for that particular game. And if it's a popular game, they might do that. So it's a marketplace. So it's basically we built an app store effectively for casino games.
Awesome. Billy, you were playing one today, right?
Yeah, I was trying out the brand new dice game.
Cool. What did you think?
Very cool. I love it.
Great.
So I'm going to preface it with, I'm terrible at gambling.
That's okay.
I stay away from it.
But, good thing about gambling is it doesn't require a lot of skill. It's pure entertainment.
Sure. Right.
So as long as you stick to the right limits and make sure you don't, spend what you can't afford.
Exactly.
You don't need a lot of skills. You just have to have fun. But the thing I like about the dice game, have you tried telling it to autoplay and then clicking it to go in turbo mode and see how fast it plays?
I have not, but I will.
Well, that's worth a try. Tell it to play 20 games or 50 games, and then put it in turbo mode and kick it off, and you see it go bang, 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 like throwing dice. It just proves how fast that technology is. It's not really actually that fun, although maybe it is fun just to see it rattle through a bunch of games. But you compare that with the existing dice games that take minutes to do each roll, and as can be done in less than a second. It's quite a shift in playability.
That's awesome.
Well, on that same note, I'm sure you're partial to a particular game.
Well, I love
Texas
poker.
Hold'em
We
guy,
don't
or?
have poker.
I was playing
Gotcha.
blackjack today because I'm a standard blackjack guy. So I was
Okay, how's the
on the
blackjack?
platform. It was good. It was good. I enjoyed
Good.
it. Hey, I was.
Yeah, I must admit, when I'm in a real casino, like in Las Vegas, I will look out the poker games, and if I can't find a poker game, I might play blackjack, but I generally don't play the other games.
I actually.
You have
Just to throw this out there, last time that I was in the casino, I fell in love with Spanish 21. Like, it was a better version of blackjack to me, but you gotta have a.
What was that called?
Spanish 21.
Okay, I've heard of it, but I haven't played it.
It was, you could put an extra bet down on another place, and if one of those, like the same number came out in the dealer's hand that you had, like a 5 or something, you get a bigger payout. There were more options to it that I really liked. I forget what the other rules were, but it was fun.
Very good.
So Billy, you were having something there?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jez, do you have a favorite casino in the States?
A favorite casino. Well, I get to Vegas quite a lot for work. Like I go there for the odd conference. I'm there for CES show. I'm there for G2E, which is the gaming show. I'm there for DEF CON, which is the so I get there a few times a year, and I like the Cosmopolitan, to be honest, because I like the vibe of the place. And if I'm playing poker, I will probably play at the Venetian, I guess, or because I'm not rich enough to play at the Bellagio in that high stakes game.
Should have charged more for the ICO, Jez.
There you go. Yeah. No. I like to play for fun. Like I want to play, for a few dollars. I don't want to play for thousands of dollars. Like, for me, I get the same enjoyment regardless of how much it is. So I'd rather not, lose too much. Although often I win in Vegas.
So how do you pick your place of choice? Like, is there a certain thing you look for? Certain environments?
Is there?
Yeah. So when you're trying to pick out your favorite casino, like how do you decide Like what metrics do you use?
I am. So it depends whether I'm there for fun or for work. So if I'm there
Okay.
for work, I want to see what people do in casinos, and I want to see what games they play, and I want to see what the latest slot machines are, and because that's the bulk of the business of a casino is actually the slot machines. So I
Sure.
want to see what people are playing and what's fun and what's good and what do they like about it. If I'm going for myself for fun, then I'm kind of more concerned with what's the vibe, what kind of clientele do they have there? Like, is it fun? Um, do they have poker? Because I love poker. Like,
Right.
if they do have poker, is it like amateurs like me so that I can have fun? Or is it professionals that are going to screw me, which I
Daniel
definitely don't want to
Negreanu
play at?
sitting across from you somewhere or something.
Yeah. Um, and also, like, Cosmopolitan has great restaurants and a really nice vibe. So, it's like, I love STK, the steakhouse that's there. Um, so that would be my choice. Or sometimes when I go to a conference, I just want to stay at the closest hotel to the conference. So if I go to G2E, I stay at the Venetian because it's exactly connecting, so I can get to the Sands Expo walking internally and not have to go outside.
Sure.
Sounds like fun. I spent a little time out in Vegas when I was driving out there to move to LA, and I ended up winning enough money to pay for all the furniture in my apartment. Not great
Wow.
furniture by any means, but enough money to pay for the furniture when I first got out there. But
So
IKEA.
I have a
yeah,
funny anecdote, or maybe an amusing anecdote about the first time I went to Vegas for work, which was a long, long time ago. It was in the computer games business, and I arrived, and for some reason I didn't have a hotel room, and so I needed to book a hotel room, and this is during CES time, and every hotel room was booked, and I just couldn't find anywhere to stay. And I went to Treasure Island, which at the time was a high-end hotel. I know it's a low-end hotel now, but at the time it was the newest hotel. Um, and they said, well, we only have a hotel room if you're a high roller. And of course, A, I didn't know what a high roller was, and B, I definitely wasn't one. But I said, fine, give me the player's card. And they gave me the card, and I literally sunk $1,000 into a slot machine and cycled it through because you don't lose it all in one go. It's like a $1 slot machine. And I was just playing for an hour or two. And like, I didn't lose anything. Like, I still ended up with about $1,000. But most importantly, I had earned enough loyalty points on the player's card for them to comp me a room. So then I
that's
actually had a
awesome.
room for the night.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's I kind of luck out when I play too in some areas because when I did that went out to Los Angeles, they gave me free stays the next time I came back through, and I wasn't playing any big tables, but it was just the fact that I sat there for like 12 hours. Like I sat there,
Yeah.
at the
Yeah,
same
I
table
think
for
that is
that
it.
long.
They effectively they have some algorithm that measures your stake and how many hours you've played, and they multiply that through and decide how valuable you are to them. And if they care about you enough, then they're going to comp you stuff and like hotel rooms and food and anything to get you to play more. So yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So to kind of circle this back, I know we're coming to the close here of the podcast. I just want to, kind of wrap two things into one. So you mentioned this. You guys are going through, your closed beta right now, and then, on your roadmap, um, it looks like, multi-state games, roulette, alpha release is potentially coming out in Q4. So how's everything going with all that? How's everything going
So
with the
everything's
beta and
going
everything?
pretty well. I mean, the reality is that we're behind schedule. Um, but when we wrote the schedule, like more than a year ago, we made our best guess. This is state-of-the-art technology. We didn't have it all built. Otherwise, we would have released it a year ago. So we had the proof of prototype. We had it working, but there was a lot of work to be done, and we've been doing that ever since. So we're now in beta test, and we're running on mainnet. So as far as we're concerned, we've done a lot, and we've got 10 games running, and there's a few more in development, and there's a few that we had put out earlier and we've withdrawn while we improved them, like Craps, for instance, that we will be putting out again soon in an improved form. So we think we've done a pretty good job, but we are definitely not running on the schedule that we originally hoped. But the plan is to go live with multiple casinos soon after beta. Beta is well underway, and I can't give a date on when it's done because it's done when it's done. So we're 45 people here. We're a pretty big team in crypto, and we have done an enormous amount of work, and we've got state-of-the-art technology. So we think we've really, we're almost there, but we have not got a date yet for our release. All we can tell you is it's soon after the beta test, and the beta test is well underway. But is the beta test going to be over next week? No, definitely not. But we are nearly there. So it releases soon. Oh, cool. Who's that?
This he just woke up from his nap. This is Chewy. He's a 24. Yeah,
great name.
Short for Chewbacca.
Yeah.
24-pound Norwegian forest cat.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah, if you're listening to the podcast, Billy's tiger just walked across the screen in front of the computer there.
That's right.
So, the only thing I want to say there to your, the dates timeline, I totally get that. Billy and I both work, besides Crypto Fizz, we work in software development. And that's the hardest thing is, we never give specific dates because you never know what's going to change. But then again,
yeah, so I'm very guilty of, just before we went into beta, like a few weeks before, someone in a mini developer conference asked me, when is it coming out? And I said single-digit weeks. And that was the worst thing I could have said, because at the time when I said that, I genuinely believed that. But as it turned out, we went into beta before that, self-imposed schedule, but beta took a lot longer than expected. And it wasn't a few weeks like I optimistically thought. And actually, we're still finding bugs and we're fixing bugs every single day. And the number of bugs outstanding is reducing, so we're doing well. But it's nowhere near done yet. So we've still got some number of weeks, and I'm not even going to say how many to go, because I wouldn't know how many. So I need to just be a little bit less optimistic and not give any approximate dates, because people take them very literally.
Oh, totally. But on the flip side, I would rather you put out a solid product and take more time.
Absolutely. No, there's no point in putting out a buggy product or an unfinished product. This is like a significant technology that has the potential to disrupt an industry, and it's going to have like a 5 or 10 year life. It's not going to, whether we release it this month or next month or even the month after, is not going to change the impact that it makes, but it has to be right.
Exactly. 100%.
Measure twice, cut once. So I actually have two kind of quote unquote rapid fire questions for you.
Okay, good.
One, the headphones you're wearing. I'm just curious what those are.
These are, what are they called? Astro. They're gaming headset, and I'm not really a gamer, although obviously I used to be. But I like them because they're wireless. Oops, did I press the wrong button there? They're wireless and they have pretty good sound and a good microphone that's nicely directional. But they're not very discreet. They're kind of, And I think these are the PlayStation version, which I'm using on a Mac.
Second one is, do you have a favorite book, or is there one that you recommend?
My favorite book. I really don't actually have a favorite book, but I just was given one by the author a few days ago, which is by an investor called Jim Mellon, and Juvenescence. And this is a science book, and the guy has been researching technologies that are going to improve our lives, like medically improve our lives, and allow us to live longer and live healthier and so on like that. And this is a book about all the technology involved behind that. And so that's the most recent book I got. I can't say it's my favorite book or anything. It just happens to be the most recent book. I don't tend to read fiction. I don't have enough time. I love movies and games and music and magic. That's one of my hobbies.
Nice.
But mainly I'm into technology. In closing, thank you so much for giving me the time. I'm excited by the blockchain world and how innovative it is and how amazing the people are in it. And we're trying to do our bit, at least to disrupt online gaming.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jez, so much. And that'll close out our podcast.
Thank you so much for the chance to chat to you.